Thanks for watching this Coastline Church video. If you would like to get further connected, you can email us at hello@coastlinensb.com or visit us at facebook.com/coastlinensb.
So one of the things that I remember about my childhood, and especially my time in high school, was that being a student was not necessarily like my calling in life. I was actually talking to Brandon, our youth pastor, about this here earlier this morning, and we've got some friends that are like going back into education, and they're, we got a friend that's going to get his law degree, and just even thinking about that, it's not the heat that's making me sweat, it would be the stress of like, man, that further, and so for some of you people, man, you guys are intelligent, bright people, and that's something that you love and enjoy, but for me, being a student was not my favorite memory of my childhood. I do remember, though, that in all of my schooling, there was one class that I really liked above all the rest, and that was American history. How many of you guys remember going and having American history? Some people. Some of you got to think way, way back, right, Sandy? But I remember in American history, this part of talking about our country's history, in which this document that was written up and it was sent to the Kingdom of Great Britain. We call it the Declaration of Independence. And this Declaration of Independence was pretty cool. It was a letter written to the king in that time that pretty much said, like, hey, we know that you want to control us. We know that you want to have a say in this, but we're not going to do that anymore. We've got some beliefs, we've got some feelings that we should be living life the way that we feel like we're called to live. And so they wrote this letter, and I remember in the very beginning of this letter, this declaration of their independence, the United States Declaration of Independence, the beginning of it starts out something like this. It says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of what? Happiness," right? The pursuit of happiness. Look at your neighbor and say, be happy. Be happy. I think happiness is what I want to talk about today because of this. I believe that happiness is something that we all pursue. It's something that we all desire in our lives. I want you to be happy as a church. I want you to be happy as individuals. Today, even in the midst of this heat wave or whatever we're having, I hope that you're happy. Part of what we've done is kind of cheated a little bit in buying you ice cream afterwards, right? You can't go wrong with ice cream on a hot day. But I think happiness is something that we all desire. We all want to be happy. If you're here today and you say, Brian, I just don't want to be happy, come talk to me after service. I've got this place that I can take you called the Port Orange Counseling Center, and they're going to love spending time with you. When it comes to our happiness, though, for all of us, we desire to be happy, we want to be happy, but our happiness varies in many different ways. What the person on your left might make them happy is different than what the person on your right, or even what yourself makes you happy. And so this past week I did a little bit of an experiment, and I went on social media, and I posted something like this. It said, blank makes me happy. Fill in the quote, or fill in the blank. And man, within like minutes, there was like tons and tons of reactions. Lots of people started writing things in. People wrote in grandchildren. Grandchildren make you happy. Raise your hand if grandchildren make you happy. Yeah. Family. People said family. Watching my kids grow up makes me happy. An honest mom said babysitters. Babysitters make me happy. Right? I agree with that. Of the like almost 100 things that got people posted, Taco Shack was trending for sure. Taco Shack makes people happy. Fishing makes people happy. How many people like fishing? Raise your hand if you like fishing. Yeah, it makes me happy. I love fishing. Sitting on the beach. I love sitting on the beach, man. Hanging out and just watching the waves go by, man. There's nothing wrong with that. One guy said date night, ... Or what happens after date night with my wife. Makes him happy. right? Let's be honest. I'm telling you, yeah, I get with that. Shopping, retail therapy. Does that make anybody happy? Target makes people happy. And some people wrote money. Money makes them happy. Now here's the thing. I remember people telling me, like when I was growing up, said, Brian, money cannot buy happiness. But I'm pretty sure money can buy a flats boat, and that's pretty close to happiness. So, yeah. All those are pretty great. And in all those things that make us happy, I think in doses of them, we definitely can be happy, we can be at peace, we can find joy in those things. But over a long period of time, I don't know if that really sustains us. I don't know if that joy, that happiness that we want can be found in those things. So let's think about it again. Grandkids. All you grandparents out there, you love your grandkids for about half a day. And then we're ready to send the grandkids back to the parents, right? Let's just be honest. You spend a weekend with your grandkid, and you'll be really happy that they're your grandkid, not your kid again, right? No one wants to go through that again. Other people think about fishing. Man, I enjoy fishing. I love fishing. This past week on Thursday, I went offshore, and I saw a commercial fisherman out there catching kingfish. And he did not have a smile on his face. I was happy, but that was his job, and he was going for it, and he was working hard. I don't know if fishing makes him happy anymore. Today, I want to try to figure out, like, what's the surefire way? What's the thing that we need to pursue as followers of Christ? What's as Christ followers? What's the pathway for us to achieve happiness, for us to feel peace in our lives on a daily basis? What's the things that we need to do? Because I don't necessarily know if it's going to be stuff. I think it's just one step. We've got to choose to live our life under God. In Romans chapter 15, verse 13, that's what I said, right? The Apostle Paul hints a little bit on how we can pursue happiness in this letter. He says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." You know, I was thinking back the other day in like how I became a Christian, how I became a follower of Christ. And I cannot attest it to like a sermon. There was not like any sermon that I heard that was like, man, this is just the best thing I ever heard in my life, revolutionized my thought about Christianity or about God. I don't think it ever happened over a Bible study. It didn't happen over a specific worship time or environment or even at a youth camp. At some point, what happened to me that made me decide to be a follower of Christ was an experiment. In my life, at some point, I realized, man, what's happening here and now, the things that are going on in my life do not make me happy. What I'm having to go through is not peace, it is destruction, and happiness is the furthest thing that I can feel from at this moment. And so at some point I started to decide, it's like, okay, well, I've got to do something different. We've got to change I've got to change the way I'm thinking I'm living life. So I said, okay, God, I'm going to do life your way. And it happened just a little bit at a time. But the thing was, is as I continued to pursue God and continued to do life the way that he said that we were supposed to do it, my life started to get better. I started getting closer to happiness. I started to feel peace in my life. Now here's the thing, I didn't necessarily become rich. I didn't have all the money that I wanted. I didn't have a bunch of friends that were around me encouraging me all the time. I didn't have the things that I thought I needed to make me happy. But as I started to continue to choose him, as I started to live my life step by step under him, happiness was something that I started to feel, that peace. When it comes to pursuing God, I want to make sure that what I'm doing, the steps I'm taking, are the steps that Jesus has said. You know, I read through the Bible and there's tons of letters of men and there's tons of law. You got the 10 Commandments, even more than 10 Commandments. There's something like 612 commandments that were written out. And then there was something like 2,000 other commandments that were oral laws that the Jewish people were supposed to follow and do. But ultimately, I believe that when it comes down to pursuing what God wants for our life, I think it comes down to what Jesus did. Because there's 2,600 and some all laws, those things that I'm supposed to do to make life better, to follow God, I don't know if I can ever live up to those things. I don't know if there's ever a time in which I hit that mark following those laws. But Jesus did. Jesus was sinless. Jesus was able to follow the law to the letter of the law and pursue God. And because of his purity, because of who he was and what he did on the cross, man, I believe that through him, we can pursue life with our Heavenly Father. And ultimately, I think that we can pursue happiness under God. When it comes to these laws, these 2,600 some laws, there's a case in the Bible, there's a story in which Jesus has a conversation with a lawyer. And he helps the people kind of understand a little bit more about this. This lawyer, he would have known the law inside and out. He would have known every little bit and piece of what he was supposed to do. But in Mark chapter 12, verse 29, he asked Jesus, he tests him, he's like, Jesus, what is the most important law? What is the thing that we're supposed to do? The thing that sets it at the very top that nothing surpasses. What is the thing that we're supposed to pursue? In Mark chapter 12, verse 29 to 31, it says this. It says, the most important one, answered Jesus, is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. Jesus says, in some of the other books of the Bible, he says that all the other laws, all the rest of it, is based off of these two. Love God with all, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. I think that as Christians, as followers of Christ, we understand that we're supposed to love God with all. Sometimes, though, it's hard to actually do that part of it. And when it comes to loving our neighbors, I don't necessarily know that Jesus isn't even talking about the people that live next to us. He might be talking about the people that live with us. What about our family? What about our kids? What about our mothers or our fathers? We're supposed to love them. We are also supposed to love the people that God has put into proximity with us. But then there's also a third part in there. It says, love yourself. Now here's the thing. In America today, many people think that to pursue happiness, I've got to do that last part, right? I've got to love myself. I've got to watch out for me. I got to make sure that, I'm getting the things that I need to survive in life. If I'm going to be happy, I've got to make sure I get all the things that I want. I've got to love me. But I don't necessarily think that that's how Jesus said that we're supposed to pursue it. I think that if we want happiness, we've got to live our lives under God. He's got to be number one. We've got to make time for him. We've got to have a relationship with him. I was talking with a student this past week, and he was telling me that towards the end of their school year, they did an experiment amongst the class, and all of them looked on their phones and saw how many hours in a week they spent on their phone or on a certain app. And in 5 days, 5 24-hour periods, they jotted down in that amount of time how much time was spent on certain apps. And he said there was one kid that out of 5 days of tracking this, he had spent 24 hours on the YouTube app on his phone. Not just his phone, the YouTube app. One application, 24 hours. I think the same thing happens to us many times. Maybe it's Facebook, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's entertainment. Maybe it's watching TV. But sometimes we allow other things to take the number one spot when it comes to God. You want me to show you a way to test whether or not you've put anything ahead of God or not? look at your bank account and look at your calendar. See the things in life that you put ahead of God. What's the things that you put the most money into? What's the things that you put the most time into? And ask yourself, is that something that I've allowed to take the place of God? But it doesn't make sense, because I know what you're saying, man. The world in which we live in today is you've got to look out for you. You've got to pursue you. You've got to love you. You've got to get the things that you need for you to be happy. Otherwise, if you don't, nothing else is going to work out. So it kind of turns out like this. In this jar, I want you to visualize this is the stuff in life that you think makes you happy. Okay, this is shopping, or that show that you watch or whatever. I'm not saying that these things are bad things at all. Fishing's in here, yoga if you like to yoga, or working out, that stuff's in here. Anything that you think that you need to pursue to help you find happiness and fulfillment. That's all these things. And so we pile these things into our life, this jar that represents our life. And then when it comes down to it, when it comes time to doing the part that we're supposed to do, when it comes to loving the people around us, when it comes to help and serve people, or helping our neighbor move, or love on them, or listen to that person in our life that's like really tough to like hear all the bad things that's going on in their life, right? When it comes to maybe serving at church or something like that, when we start putting these things on top, and it gets a little bit harder. When it comes to spending time with God, when it comes to saying, we've got to spend some time in prayer or reading the Bible or something, or we've got an app for that. We'll try to read the Bible a little bit. It turns into this balancing act. And it seems like nothing ever really fits. And what happens is the things that don't fit into our life, we start to cut out. We start to say, well, I just can't do that right now. I can't balance all of life. But I don't think that's how God has told us. I definitely see that's not how Jesus told us we should live. See, the thing is, if we were to go and take our lives and do what Jesus says, and love God, and spend time with Him, spend time having a relationship with Him and doing what He's called us to, if we'll then spend some time loving on the people around us, spending time with our family, and doing the things that the fathers and mothers and sons and daughters should do, if we love our neighbors and don't tell people, give people your number one sign as they're going slow on the passing lane on the highway, if we'll do this, if we'll love God and love people first, what Jesus called us to, when it comes time to doing the rest of this, I foresee this thing breaking like crazy, right? Here we go. You can do it. You got it. Everything else fits just a little bit better. Everything else is able to work it out. If we'll put God first, if we'll love Him with everything, if we'll pursue Him, I promise you happiness is a lot closer than what you think. If you'll love the people that God has placed in front of you and around you, if you'll love your neighbors and spend time caring for them, that stuff that you need to bring you happiness, I promise you it will be there. You don't have to worry about you. You got a Father in heaven that's going to worry about you. He's going to take care of you. But He wants you to pursue a relationship with Him first. He wants you to live life under Him. Put Him at the very top. Love the people around you next. And also love yourself. I know for some people, when I say love yourself, for you it's kind of a tough thing, because you know all the things that you've done wrong. You know the things that you've messed up in. You know the things that no one else should know, or you don't want them to know. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and we can't love us. But I think if the God of the universe, the creator of heaven and earth, loved us so much that He sent His Son, and His Son loved us so much that He died for us, man, we should love us as well. You agree with that? I love how, I remember being in kindergarten, and my teacher was a woman named Miss Christopherakis. And try figuring out how to spell Christopherakis in kindergarten. That's pretty tough, right? But I remember her teaching the class this one thing, and it was like in the very first days of being in school. And I don't know if it's something they do in school today, but we learned the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Went something like this. We're recording this, so I hope I don't mess it up and we put it on YouTube. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At some point, whether it was our founders or someone at the top, they realized that, man, when it comes to our nation even, at some point we should realize that God needs to be number one. And I don't know if in America that's the case anymore. I hope that we can get it back to that way. And in my life, I want it to be that way. But I think when it comes to us pursuing happiness, I think in our Declaration of Independence, the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, I think that only comes through God and being dependent on Him. And so today, I don't know what you're going through, but you know. You know the pressures of life, you know the pain, the things that you're dealing with, the tension, the lack of peace, the things that don't make you happy. And I want to tell you today, one way to change that, one way to pursue happiness, is to put your life in order in such a way where your life is under God. Make Him number one. I think it's the best advice that I can give you for today. Today, as we end the service and we spend some time connecting with each other and having some delicious ice cream and stuff and head to the beach, I want you to cut part of your day out and spend some time talking with your Heavenly Father. Spend some time loving on Him and connecting with Him. Maybe on the car ride, you don't try to look at Facebook or Instagram while you're driving. Maybe you spend some time in prayer. Don't close your eyes while you do that. If you're missing out on happiness in your life, only advice I can give you is make sure that you're pursuing the right things in the right order. Love God, love people, love yourself. I hope you know that I love you. And if there's anything I can do to help you at any point, I would love to do it. I know Eric Lancaster, the Connections guy, he feels the same way. If there's anything going on in life midweek, let us know. We would love to be in prayer with you.